Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Today is Gita Jayanti, the day that Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, about 5,100 and something years ago. So we're going to have a special class this morning, reading chapter 2 of the Gita, contents of the Gita summarized. We get an overview of the content of the whole book. So the Gita is, first of all, what's the meaning of Bhagavad Gita?
God's song.
Right, song of God. Bhagavan, opulent person, and Gita means song. How many chapters?
18.
Verses.
700.
Okay, just making sure, paying attention. There's 700 verses. Now, one of the beautiful things about the Gita is how concise it is. It's 3% the length of the Bible and 10% the length of the Quran. So as far as these three major world scriptures go, it's so cogent. Although it has been commented upon and interpreted hundreds of times. Thomas Jefferson had a copy of Bhagavad Gita. It's been in English that long. And yet, for all these hundreds of editions in English, no one ever became a devotee of Krishna before Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is. That is testimony to the importance of presenting it without interpretation. I've seen so many crazy interpretations of Bhagavad Gita. One of them says, Krishna shows us that if we're devout enough, we can actually think that we're God. So in 1962, Srila Prabhupada was 66 years old, living alone in Vrindavan, impoverished but blissful as a renunciate in that holy city. And he undertook the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is 18,000 verses. A monumental undertaking, considering that he had, of course, this was an analog age. There was no computer, there was no soft copy, it was all hard copy. He was typing, and he only typed with 2 fingers. So he did all the typing, all the Sanskrit, the translation, the full translation, and his commentary. You can imagine how long that would take. Then when the manuscript, one hard copy manuscript was finished, then he would go back to all the corrections, get it ready to go to the printer. Huge task. But somehow, while doing that, he found time to start putting the verses of Bhagavad Gita into Bengali poetry. Bengali was his native language. Of course, he was quite fluent in English, But one of his godbrothers had a regular Bengali magazine promoting Krishna consciousness. So he started submitting chapters of the Gita in poetry to this publication. So sometime over that period, between 62, 64, before he came west, he completed all of the Gita in this poetic fashion. It was serialized in publication and forgotten until about 7 or 8 years later, when he found followers in the West, and he started a publishing arm, Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, and then it started spreading to other countries. When it got to Bengal, then he remembered and asked the devotees there to assemble these 18 chapters from the serial version he had done into a book. So that's, he called Gitar, which means singing this song divine. He wanted this poetic tradition to be sung in villages, and indeed became the Bhagavad Gita in Bengal. It's just the verses, no commentary, just the verses. A very concise book. So my friend Swarup Krishna Prabhu and I took up the task of putting this in English poetry for the first time. So this is what we'll read this morning. It is based on all of Prabhupada's translations. He weaves a lot of things into the translation that are not there in the Sanskrit for the purpose of highlighting and kind of giving purports wrapped in with the translations. For example, he compares the mind to Hiranyakashipu. Remember Hiranyakashipu in Bhagavad Gita? In this chapter, he has an analogy that we don't find in the original text. Arjuna, in his perplexity, is saying, I feel like I'm a man standing with one foot on one boat and one foot on another boat, very unstable. So these sort of nuances are beautiful additions to those who are familiar with his Bhagavad Gita as it is. All right, so we'll read chapter 2, and I'd like to ask if everyone would take a turn in a simple way. Okay. This part of the beauty of poetry is its rhythm. So let's see if we can read all 72 verses without breaking the beat. In order to do that, we need to do some different microphone techniques. Okay. Basic thing is we'll go men's side, ladies' side. And when you finish reading, hand the mic to the person next to you. And don't turn off the mic. No need to turn off the mics. Sorry, Carmen. Battery manager. When you finish with it, just pass it on to the next person, all right? And that way we will keep the flow. It's a simple iambic pentameter, which is 14 verses per measure. Everything is written in the same meter that Prabhupada used. There are a few verses that are written in a different meter, so I'll read those just so we don't get tripped up on those. Like, for example, if you look at verse number 5 on page 22, in the Sanskrit, the meter is changed, Prabhupada changed, but we also changed accordingly. All right? Any questions before we start? Okay, so we'll read chapter 2, and then we'll go back and use it as a review of the whole piece. Fair enough? Okay. Since we don't have 2.5 hours to read the entire thing in Sanskrit or English or in this translation. Okay, so start. Why don't you be Sanjay? Huh? Okay.
Arjuna, shedding tears of pity, thoroughly confused, heard Madhusudana speak with sweet and friendly attitude.
Lord Krishna said, my dear Arjuna, why shed tears upon this field of war? A foolish man laments, for values wiser men abhor. Your tears lead not to heaven, but to widespread disrepute. My friend, you must abandon this misplaced, degraded mood.
Why should this lack of potency degrade your martial skill? A feeble-hearted soldier is unfit to fight and kill. My friend, how has this weak behavior set you so far back? How will you counteract the fearsome enemy's attack?
O killer of mountain beast, I can't imagine why you will not the arrows to take the weird elders' lives. Why should I pierce my learned guru's flesh, as you have said? I'd rather worship Vishmadev and join his feet inside.
They're more than military gods. They're saintly souls and very wise. My friend, you think I should kill those I love? Why, I would rather beg for bread than fight till they or I am dead. What profit lies in winning stained with blood?
Should I kill?
I'll read those verses. Should I kill them or they kill me? I'm caught in the dichotomy, as if a man with feet on separate rafts. To kill my friends who will not run, or the Dharastra's hostile sons, assures us only sorrow unsurpassed. I feel so weak with meager vision, baffled in my comprehension. Only fools abandon sacred posts. Now let the whole world witness you tell me the proper thing to do. Please help me be determined and composed. So blind of eye and dull of brain, I'm too impure to douse the flames of pain that burn my senses and my poise. For even with unrivaled throne or heaven's kingdom as my own, how can this sorrow ever be destroyed?
Sanjaya said, reflecting thus, Arjuna, always self-controlled and strong. Again said Krishna, master of desire, this is wrong. Govinda, pleaser of the senses, I shall quit this war. With that, the sullen hero sat and offered nothing more.
And hearing this, the gentle smile between the worn sides, Lord Krishna gave the stricken friend the following advice.
Lord Krishna said, although your words are learned, you're lamenting for something lame. The truly learned know that the soul and body aren't the same. The body dies, but the spirit lives, and clearly judging this, the wise do not lament for the body's certain exodus.
And right, all these kings have passed through countless times. We all exist eternally, yet will speak the last.
Although your words are learned, you're learned for something lame. The truly learned know that
I
soul.
think we're on 13.
The soul and body differ, as the Pandits have explained. The endless soul remains untouched as fleeting bodies change. Through childhood, youth, and aged years, the soul lives on, and goes on living even when the body's dead and gone.
As winter turns to summer, joy and sorrow come and go. A man attached to sense perceptions wavers as they flow. Attachment to the temporary must be overcome. When one learns to be tolerant, attachment will succumb.
A person who appreciates the goal of life attains a tolerant position that surpasses joy and pain. Such persons remain steady in a world of agitation, forsaking temporary things for endless liberation.
The spheres of the truth conclude by studying in full the qualities of both the body and the spirit soul. That bodies are ephemeral, but spirits never die. Conclusions such as this alone can benefit mankind.
The endless soul pervades the body, making one away. Without the soul, the body falls and can't move anywhere. The soul goes on forever, as concluded by the wise, but how can one destroy the murder that which never dies?
The body surely perishes, but one must also know there is no end to the immortal, boundless spirit soul. Discerning this reality as proper, true, and wise, stand up to face this war and with determination fight.
The person who thinks the soul can kill or he kills is led. No one can kill the spirit soul, the soul are never dead.
The soul transcends mortality. It was, it is, and it will be. The soul is both beginningless and old. The endless and undying soul cannot be born, cannot be cold, for only bodies die, not spirit souls.
Now, why would one endorse the soul as indestructible? Imagine he can kill someone and cause someone to kill. If one sees souls are everywhere and present all the time. Unlike a foolish man, he knows that souls can never die.
As any person puts on clothes, brand new and fresh, discarding those worn out and old and no longer of use. At mortal death, the soul again assumes another untouched skin. Regretting death in war is no excuse.
The soul cannot be born or drawn or changed by worldly force. No weapon can impale the soul. No right blows it offwards. Wise heroes such intuitions only does the outer form. They are action and reaction of the soul, and nothing more.
The soul has bliss that never breaks or withers or evolves, unlike something material that flounders and dissolves. The spirit soul's pervasive presence stays forever fresh, unfettered and unchanging through physically enmeshed.
Assaulting, burning, mustering, and dying just affect the body that
repeatedly departs and manifests. While human minds can fathom qualities material, the spiritual existence remains inconceivable. The challenges natures of the soul so different from the skin that one must hear of the soul and flesh again and yet again. When you see how they differ and can set the two apart, the new discrimination will accelerate your heart.
When you can see the soul lives on, you will lament no more. Your lasting bliss will far surpass what you have known before. Yet, if the body is the self remains your fear belief, and death means one is gone for good, there is still no need for grief. Since bodies die and turn again to earthly elements, that form another body, learned souls do not lament.
If matter forms a body and some fleeting traits appear, soulless remains soulless all along. Why should it here?
Knowledge of the soul. Knowledge of the soul amazes. Contacting the soul amazes. Once perceived, the soul makes one enthralled. Some declare the soul amazes. Some have heard the soul amazes. Most don't know the soul exists at all.
O Bharata, to hear and learn about the spirit soul comprises the epitome of all the Vedic scrolls. In my view, all embodied souls imbue their body's death, so reading over this instruction simply wastes your breath.
Since every righteous person has a duty to fulfill, a Kshatriya must never hesitate to fight and kill.
The doors of heaven open wide when one does not neglect to meet the sacred duties that society expects. Not only do heroic warriors reach the gods' domain, their sacrifice brings fortune that heroic men obtain.
Let me keep his sacred will abided in his word. O Kalakantha, you will lead the day here, even of the sun.
The world will sing and laugh about your cowardice, your shame, and think of you as dead. Your life will never be the same.
The great opposing soldiers who have long admired your power will see you flee the battle and declare you are a coward.
What benefits will come if you are harshly criticized? O Partha, when you listen as you hide in some disguise.
If you survive, you will enjoy this worldly sovereignty, and if you die, then heaven shall become your destiny. Kuritina, Quarantine. Either way to stay is surely good and right. Your negligence surprises me. The time has come to fight.
In joy or sorrow, loss or profit, triumph or defeat, be fearless in your work and disregard what others speak. Despite for fighting's sake, and sin will always stay aloof. You have no need to fear if you can grasp this vital truth.
Thus far, I have explained how to use knowledge as I now learn how one can work more wisely, motives set aside. Those souls of ripened intellect choose serving the Supreme and free themselves from bondage caused by acting in a dream.
Now with this practice in other case, no loss or consequence, and just any service to masses, wealth forever yours. A slight amount of progress in their service can avoid exposes the greatest fear, repeated death and birth.
Beloved Guru child, determined servitors possess both resolute intention and unbounded intelligence. But others lack persistent drive to serve the absolute, for many branched intelligence makes them irresolute.
Flowery Vedic themes cure my dangerous thoughts and minds, by promising sweet pleasures and enjoyments of all kinds. Although the pleasures that prescript this feeling all vanish in it, such lustful persons strive to rise to heaven once again. In sole pursuit of promises of heavenly delights, they fail to link with God with the simple goal of human life.
Okay, Chef, now tell me a person to repeat. How does a transcendental person watch or see that?
Oops, let me skip the page. It's page 30.
Visit with thousands of desires, mental balance short. They find the will for serving God a distant afterthought. They stay attached to pleasure, mystic powers, or salvation, and never reach devotion with a fixed determination.
The modes of goodness, dark and passion fill the very text. Transcend their worldly influence and vanquish their effects. You will then achieve pure goodness free of all dualities and grow attached to the treasure of divine affinity.
The water is the same in every well and every river. A single river gives out many wells to river. And so the very meanings that the Vedic text commands are singular as Brahmins who love God and can understand.
You have the right to do your work as your best employee, yet all the fruits of what you do are not yours to enjoy. Think not yourself the doer, nor the owner of your field, and you should find things favorable working in your field.
As for fruits, the yogi does his duty to please God, regardless Ananda if it's perfect or if it's flawed. Do your duty like the steady yogi, and you'll find you will fully satisfy the mystic longings of human.
If you decide to see your lust for worldliness destroyed, self-centered, godless actions are the actions to avoid. One's miserly possessiveness is instantly redeemed when one becomes surrendered to the will of the Supreme.
By serving the Supreme, a person's actions become plans, reactions, fires and fires soon come to an end. While fighting thus, your consciousness surpasses the mundane, and work become the art of yoga from the higher plane.
Sages do their work and live the life in renouncing selfish actions and reactions that increase. Renounce and transcend all such values come to see the liberated state of life and one understands.
When transcendental service lifts your mind above the dream, that body's the self farce that muddies everything. You too shall be indifferent to lust in all its forms, as well as all the Vedic hymns you hear or heard before.
When lesser Vedic messages no longer move your mind, your knowledge and your actions will successfully align with service to the Absolute. No method passes this, the highest state of yoga and transcendent consciousness.
Arjuna said, O Keshava, now tell me of transcendence if you please. How does a transcendental person walk or sit at ease? A man of fixed intelligence, what language does he speak? What other qualities makes this accomplished soul so unique?
Lord Krishna said, when one gives up concocted sense impulses and perceives how soul and supersoul relate, he's satisfied and pleased. While he progresses, others, keen on sensual pursuit, just suffer on and on from that deficit substitute.
A man whose mind is peaceful, both in misery and joy, whose service and devotion keeps him constantly employed, relief of any craving, sorrow, fretfulness, or rage, is known to everybody as a steady-minded sage.
The person who forgets about the physical demands, receiving good info without praise or reprimand, devoid of hatred, showing much goodwill to all he meets, is known to be a steady soul whose knowledge is complete.
While servants of the senses suffer unceasing distress, the masters of the senses keep a sober consciousness. Like turtles tugging tender limbs within a solid shell, they keep demands for sense enjoyment tucked away and quelled. Thus, wise, consistent persons who are fixed in self-control are known to be Goswamis, realized, liberated souls.
Reducing sense enjoyment, though, is not at all the same. For those who have true knowledge, keep a different mental frame. By tasting transcendental bliss, one naturally eschews the mundane pleasures gleaned from common sensual pursuits.
Yes, even one souls who try to keep the senses checked will find them too impious and strong in all respects. Devoid of sacred pleasure, dry denial will produce a fire on the forehead, throwing childish minds askew.
So one who serves the Absolute and regulates each sense is certainly a person of secure intelligence.
To grant give up the sense objects will make a person's mind cold, contented, falling down all the time. He is Contemplative cravings generate a burning lust that then goes unfulfilled and turns to fury and disgust. Bewildered by this anger, one forgets his higher views and losing his intelligence, he lapses into it.
Much better one should act without attachment or aversion, and quickly break this endless round of sensual diversions. Their consciousness enriched with special grace from the Supreme, such persons remain active in this world and yet are free.
Relief from all attachment causes miseries to end, and by the grace of God, transcendence happiness descends. A person with this mercy and whose consciousness is fixed can live with wisdom even in a world of ignorance.
Though nature blesses every soul with joyful consciousness, if one does not serve God, one never seems to find such bliss. A selfish, thoughtless state of mind makes this contempt increase, for how can one be happy when one's mind is not at peace?
Conception desire throws one on the mental plane as if one were a rowboat trembling in a hurricane. A person uncontrolled in love is lost, like boats within a storm, for constant uproar won't let their intelligence perform.
Almighty Arjuna, therefore, listen now to me. A person who submits their mind to serving the Supreme will always keep their senses well controlled in such pursuit and bolster their intelligences firm and resolute.
While worthy people chase sense objects through their wakeful days, the godly people calm as night keep sense desire at bay. The godly people waken to the daylight of the soul, while worthy people's spirits sleep through nighttime dark and cold.
A mighty endless river flows forever to the sea, which takes in water undisturbed, not changing of 1 degree. So also does a godly person feel the flow of lust, yet due to sacred practices can peacefully adjust.
The godly soul, like man does, the flesh is fully tamed. Can wander everywhere to say in place God's coping. Release from all material attachments
Conceits.
Such person becomes sages as they relish in endless peace.
For sages with divine remembrance, spiritually infused, how can illusion linger on and leave the mind confused? Such saintly persons are so steadfast above the grip of time that even at the hour of death they keep a peaceful mind.
Let's all read this last verse. Bhakti Vedanta Swami does recite Sri Dharan to please the pure devotees, always act Krishna song. Yes. Good knowledge of the soul and the mind. Good job. Very thoroughly. Just one good point. You see verse 71. This is an example of Prabhupada, right? Reading in a purport. He gives Narada Muni as an example of a self-realized soul after this description. Although Narada's name does not appear in this part of Bhagavad Gita. Also in verse 60, there's an interesting phrase here. Devoid of sacred pleasure, dry denial will produce a fire on the forehead, throwing childish minds askew. An interesting phrase. In other words, you try to just renounce, it only produces a fire on the forehead. What a phrase. All right, does anyone have any specific verses that were unclear or they'd like to comment on or wish this?
I wonder why some verses in the beginning have different written, or that you were reading?
Yeah, it was, it's in the Sanskrit, in the original. So one of the beauties of the Gita is its consistency of, and it's universally accepted in terms of its Sanskrit content. Okay. Other scriptures of the world have passed through human interpretations and manipulations. Some books of the Bible, for example, were excluded for political reasons. Some are included. But there is no conflict about the content of the 700 verses of the Gita. One sentence here or there, but There's beautiful consistency. Even the Mahabharata from which it comes is subject to many different versions. The Madhvacharya called it wholesale impure for that reason. Mahabharata recited in one part of India, they would add certain stories and subtract certain stories. And so they're all different varieties. You cannot tell what is the original. But the Gita is pristine and right in the middle of it, it is accepted all the way through. So those verses change meter in Sanskrit, and Prabhupada changed in Bengali and English as well. Alex.
So we have the accurate Sanskrit, the original Bhagavad Gita from 5,000 years ago.
Yes.
No doubt about it.
There's no controversy about what the Sanskrit content is.
Yeah.
There's differences of opinion about interpretation, but the content itself is not a dispute. Interesting. Well, I'm just going to again contrast, like with the Bible, for example.
Yeah.
What we traditionally read is the King James Version, which was edited in the 1600s, and then it's been edited again and edited again. So the actual content is very much in dispute. I don't know, that's the Bible, it's one book, but the
originality.
All the apostles gave different accounts of the same event, and none of them saw Jesus personally.
Yeah.
So
that's the main thing. Like when I'd be preaching, that I had to make emphasis on that, like this is the original Bhagavad Gita, and people would ask me like, "How do you know that?" And, you know, they would be so pompous about it. And, I'd usually answer that the vibration of how you're supposed to sing Bhagavad Gita and the shlokas has never changed.
Yes.
And I've analyzed like different Vaishnavas from around the world saying the Gita, and they're all saying it the same way we are. So
the verses are exactly the same.
Yeah.
Regardless of the interpretation.
People are very finicky on that today, like on originality, because if they feel like it's not original, then they'll get like really bent up out of shape about it.
It's one of the beautiful qualities of the Gita. Any other comments?
I was just thinking, like, you mentioned a reason that Prabhupada's Gita was so successful is because there's no interpretation. But I know sometimes when I want to share maybe something from the Gita, I try to say it in a way that it lands with people. And I just kind of want to know, like, how do we know if we're off track, if we have gone too far into like I'm making it, like I'm putting my own spin on it. How do we know when it's something that's authentic versus something that is like too far?
So Srila Prabhupada said to assimilate and then present in your own words. So there's a great deal of latitude to present according to your realization. And how do we know if we're off track? If we miss the essential point of the Gita, which is to surrender to Krishna. Most interpretations of the Gita do not make that point. One way or another say you can realize your godhood by reading Krishna's words. And if we actually read Krishna's words, he uses first person pronouns in the Sanskrit like 100 times, approximately 100 times in the course of the 700 verses. What are first person pronouns? I, me, mine. So he's speaking about himself. And yet people interpret his words as if he's speaking about somebody else.
Yeah.
So that takes a lot of word jugglery, calisthenics, as Prabhupada said. So, the simple, what was that? Razors? What was that? Acme's razor? Is that it? The simplest route is usually the right one. So a very simple presentation, as it is, leaves no room for that. So if you're presenting Krishna as God, you're on track. If you're presenting, oh, you read this book and you can become God, it's definitely better marketing. On track. Wow. Finally, someone will appreciate my untapped potential. Any other questions? we missed you over in the corner. So,
Yeah, also, the Gita is the only scripture in the world where it says, I'm God, this is what I want, I'm speaking, no need to speculate.
yes,
It's the only scripture in the world that's like that.
it's true.
And I think Matthew, Mark, and Luke were direct disciples of Christ. John was not, Paul was not.
Yes, well, yeah, I don't want to get into that, but what they wrote, their writings attributed some many years later. That's the point.
Well, yeah, that's true, they're all written quite a bit later.
Yeah, yeah. All right, yes, but go home and make a really important point. Is one thing that sets the Gita aside is God speaking for himself, whereas in other scriptures such as Bible or Quran, speaking most cases through an agent. Or the Book of Mormon. God is revealed through these plates Joseph Smith discovered. So there's always a pass-through. And what makes the Gita unique is that there's no pass-through. The Krishna says, all right, this is it. He has to say, I'm God, because that's what he is. That's the reality. He has to say it straightforwardly and directly because he can't change it to express his humility. I'm too humble to admit it, but I'm God. It's just like when Krishna was in Dwarka with his wife for the meeting, he would wake up early in the morning, hearing the sound of a crowing, and he would immediately get up, Bhagavatam says, and do his oblations and then meditate upon himself. Remember this passage? He meditated upon himself because he had to meditate upon himself. Because he's supreme, he's everything. So he's meditating on the highest meditation. Prabhupada says this is not mean we should wake up and meditate upon ourselves. We should wake up and meditate on Krishna. We all do. We're trying to break it. Okay, anyone else? Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Well, you go ahead.
Oh, excuse me,
I'll go ahead.
Alphabetical order.
Yeah.
I hope this is a perfect question. It's something I came across on Facebook and reminded me that some devotees do have issue with some translation. All of us gonna come across with it, and some devotees are really bewildered. Maybe you could use the opportunity to help us to deal with it.
You mean some of Prabhupada's translations?
Yeah, some of this as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Original, non-original.
Original, non-original.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yes. So in 1972, Srila Prabhupada published Bhagavad Gita as it is through Macmillan Press, which was a very big publishing company in New York. They were looking for a Bhagavad Gita and they selected it. So that was the only Gita that we had. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust didn't exist when I joined in 1972. So we had this Macmillan Gita, and it was so inspiring. It brought so many of us into Krishna consciousness. And later, when it was to be actually what happened, the devotees managed to get the book out of print from Macmillan. They bought all of the copies up, distributed them all, and the contract said when the book was out of print, then the rights would revert to the author. Otherwise, Macmillan owned the rights to it. And so then Prabhupada republished it through Bhaktivedanta Book Trust. He appointed an editor, Jayaveda Maharaj, who was editing the manuscripts and both the Gita and the Bhagavatam and other books Prabhupada was doing. Prabhupada trusted him. He said, whatever he edits, I accept, that question. So in 1978, and tell me if I'm giving too much information, but since you brought it up, has anyone heard about this controversy, the original book?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well, let me tell you this group. Okay. In 1978, so Jayaveda Maharaj was very busy keeping up with Prabhupada's prolific production of books, editing the Bhagavatams as they were coming out. After Prabhupada passed, then he went back to the other manuscripts he had yet to edit. So he did a thorough editing of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, and he sent out all of the edits to all the leaders of ISKCON, hundreds of devotees, for comment. Any input, give input now. We received no replies at all. And so they went ahead with the republication. And after it was republished, then people who had, I don't know, maybe does not play well with other children on their childhood report card started coming out. Oh, they've changed Prabhupada's words. So it became sort of a flashpoint, an excuse for non-cooperation, not wanting to work within the institution Prabhupada created. That was the actual history. Now, there have been now detailed studies of Jagannatha Maharaj's edits, and there are definitely places where it could be argued that it was overreach and this and that, but there are a lot of just kind of ridiculous things in the original one that passed because his editor then was very experienced. For example, there is a phrase in the Gita called Pitri Loka, the planets of the forefathers. Pitri means forefathers in Sanskrit. So the inexperienced editor at that time thought Prabhupada was saying the planet of the trees. Not the Pitris, but the planet of the trees. So those who worship the forefathers go to the planets of the trees. What's that?
I have a part of the key with that.
Yes, that was in the Macmillan Gita, for example. Just as so straightening things like that out is certainly a contribution to the cause. And another just what the whole we're doing the whole discussion on this on Gita Jayanti, which is appropriate. Interestingly, Prabhupada was approached by his editor, Hayagriva, at that time, who said that he complained to Prabhupada that he was having trouble with the translations. And Prabhupada said, just use the translations from Swami Shivananda's Bhagavad Gita. They're close enough. So he edited the purports, but he just plagiarized those translations from Swami Shivananda's Bhagavad Gita. That's why if you read the Macmillan Gita, have you ever noticed some places, some of the verses say, thou, be thou happy by this sacrifice. The biblical language, the biblical pronouns, thee and thou. It seems so, have you ever noticed it? It's kind of weird, out of place. That was from another Gita. So these are the sort of things that were corrected in the edited version of 1978. And there's definitely much more in Prabhupada's voice. So people who are still fighting that battle remind me of the Japanese soldiers on remote islands in the 50s who still thought World War II was going on. No. They hadn't got the memo. And so, but out of the desire of devotees to see this earlier version, BBT republished. Yeah, there's the original. Yes, no columns. Here's the first one. So both books have been very effective at getting the essential message across. So do we really have to have a big argument about which one is better? Tempest in a teapot. That's Shakespeare said. Okay. Other comments? Ooh.
There's a point I always ran into trouble explaining where I was just coming from and preaching. People would hear, like you mentioned, Krishna does the pronoun thing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes he talks in third person. Like he says, like, oh, and if one focuses on the super soul, someone tried to argue with me. It was actually a Muslim. He tried to argue with me and say that, oh, that proves that Krishna is not God and he's only a prophet.
He's talking about somebody else.
He's talking about the creator. He's not the creator. And then the 10th canto with Rukmini, when he would go out and meditate upon himself, like the Muslim tried to tell me that, oh, because he's going out and meditate, how can God meditate on his own self? Because Jesus did the same thing, and the Muslims was used after Jesus. Now my question is, when we're out here on campus and we run into a lot of like Christians and Muslims and stuff like that, how are we supposed to even explain that? You know, because that's hard. That's a hard one. I ain't gonna lie, I used to get stumped.
Yeah, it's a simple thing. Just like, let's say, for example, that the President of the United States is talking about the powers of the President of the United States. Okay? So he could say, well, I have these powers, or he could say the President has these powers.
Mhm.
Speaking in first person or in the third person. You see? So there's a couple of occasions in the third chapter, Krishna says, to perform sacrifice for God. Not to perform sacrifice for me, but perform sacrifice for God. And there's many examples, so, like you say. So he's just speaking in that context, like universally, this is the reality, this is the system, this is the law, this is the methodology. When he says, you know, surrender to me, it's also the methodology, but he's being personal.
Yeah.
You could say surrender to God, but then what does that mean? But it's surrender to me, well, that's pretty specific.
Yeah, and he did say the Aham Bija Pradipita. He stated pretty straight up, I'm God, I'm the supreme creator.
Over and over.
Over and over again. It's I guess it is Raja Vidya, Raja Guham, like they can't understand it. It's the king of education, the secret of all secrets. But then it's kind of just so like obvious. It's like right in their face.
Yeah, people will find amazingly creative solutions not to surrender to Krishna. That is the great use of intelligence. We're over time. Could I just take 2 more minutes? Okay, just want to just briefly summarize. So this chapter is called The Contents of the Gita Summarized. So real quick, what's the first thing that we see in this chapter? What's Arjuna doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's lamenting, and then he turns to Krishna. Right? And then Krishna gives him lesson number 1, which is?
You're a fool.
Okay, well after that. What's the first lesson, which I never got in Bible school?
Yeah.
You know, right?
You're not this body.
You're not the body.
body.
Yes. So we don't start with faith, we don't start with dogma, we start with science. Are you this body or not? You know, and he just gives them that first thing. Next lesson, after he explains the soul and the body, beginning in about verse 30. What is he now? How does he approach Arjuna, getting him to fight?
That the soul lives eternally.
We pass that after that. You can't kill all these people. You think you're going to kill them. You can't kill their souls.
You've been here many times.
Do your duty.
Your duty is to be a Kshatriya. And what are people going to do if you don't do your duty? They're going to make fun of you. You're so used to being a big shot, now they're just going to laugh at you. And then he says the negative and then the positive. And if you win this fight, or if you take part in this fight, either you win the kingdom or go to the heavenly planets. So you can't lose. Okay. After he says do your duty, then what's the next one? The next section. It's karma yoga. Do your duty for a higher purpose. Just do your duty with detachment. It goes from duty to karma yoga, and then it actually comes afterwards. After that, he speaks more about buddhi yoga or bhakti, like do your duty for God. Do your duty with detachment, and the highest is to do it for God. And then Arjuna asks, well, what's the qualities of somebody who's on this transcendental plane? And he talks about the attributes of the yogi for most of the rest of the chapter. Beautiful verse. But you see how it goes from duty to to detached duty to duty for God. This is the progress. And this is why it's called the duty, the contents summarized. All the important points. They're made again repeatedly in other places through the Gita, but here in chapter 2, they're all condensed. All right, thank you very much. Have a wonderful Ekadasi Gita Jayanti day. Prabhupada ki jai. Oh, by the way, I brought these for you as a gift. If you want to keep them, if you don't, just stack them up over here. Okay, so you can have personal copies. Prabhupada ki jai. Inside or out?
No.
Oh, sorry.
That's a wrap.
Oh.
He's telling us, step aside.